This is Dan and Lexi from Dan Schultz Outdoors, reminding you to keep the adventures alive.
Hey y'all, I'm Johnny.
And I'm Colleen. And we're the Keel Quest. And we want you to keep the adventures alive. Cheers!
Hey, this is Darren from Ride Paddle Repeat, encouraging you to keep the adventures alive.
This is David from Beasley Ironworks saying keep the adventures alive.
I'm Jay. Let's go. From Jay's Way, keep the adventures alive.
Hi, I'm Kevin Collin, the Happy Camper. Remember, keep the adventures alive. Awesome!
Woo, buddy! Shug here! Keep the adventures alive. I am.
Ethan here, the Avid Outdoorsy Guy, reminding you to keep the adventures alive.
We're John and Aaron.
Keep the adventures alive.
Hey everyone, it's Kylan from Lure of the North, and I encourage you to keep the adventures alive.
This is Sky North telling you, keep the adventures alive. And now on with the show.
Tonight's episode of CanoeHound's Outdoor Adventure Show is brought to you by OTG Meals. Fresh, freeze-dried, small-batch meals made for people on the go. Algonquin Outfitters, with 4 key locations in and around Algonquin Park to serve your backcountry needs. Kid Products, stick stoves and reflector ovens proudly made in Canada. And Novacraft Canoes, connecting you with nature in Canadian-made canoes since 1970. Well, happy Tuesday evening, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of CanoeHound's Outdoor Adventure Show, a show that's going to bring you, and you all closer to the great outdoors. My name is Dennis, also known as CanoeHound. If this is your first time tuning into the show, thank you very much. And you know what? Somebody brought up something to me at one point there after last week's show, and they said, I don't get a chance to watch until after the fact, right? And they said if you put timestamps into your description or into the video timeline, they'd be able to skip all the announcements and stuff like that. So just for everybody that feels that way, I'm going to put a timestamp into all our videos, and you know what? You could just get right to the meat and the potatoes of the show. So just keep that in mind if you want to skip the announcements part. But right now, you're live, so I got to go through the announcement part while all the chat over there gets filled up, and we have people drifting in as we speak. So, you know what? Last week, we had a really good show. It was really well received. We had a lot of comments come through about it. It was actually one of the better viewed shows on the season, and it was a show on food. Imagine that. A lot of hungry people out there, right? It was really cool to have some great guests on. We had Camper Christina, we had Kevin Wright and Kevin Callan on, and we shared all kinds of great tidbits of information about freeze drying, dehydrating, fresh foods, all kinds of recipes. It's just a bunch of great ideas. If you missed that show, you really want to catch up on it. If you're a foodie like I am, make sure you go check it out. It's available in our past episodes playlist, so you can check that out at any time. And go back through the playlist, because we actually do have from previous seasons. We also have food shows there, and you know what? This is no pun intended, but you know what? Those food shows never go stale, right? So by all means, please do check them out. It was a good show. Let's see here. Just as usual, as I like to thank those of you that contribute to the show, I just want special thanks out to Jay and Sherry over at Beauty of the Backcountry for buying coffee this week. Let's take a dip, everybody. Yes, there really is coffee in there too, by the way. No alcohol, not yet. Let's see here. Channel members. You know what? I do mention the channel members all the time, and you know what? Last week, I believe I mentioned to you that we will be doing a prize giveaway at the end of the season. There's about another 5 episodes left. At the end of May will be the end of season 4 for Canoehounds Outdoor Adventure Show. And as a thank you, I would like to do a really nice draw for my channel members. All these people you see drifting across the bottom of the screen are already entered into the draw because they are supporting channel members. I will announce probably next week some of the prizes, but just an idea of some of the prizes. One of the lucky winners is going to get one of these cool mugs, a nice Canoehound Adventures hat, sweatshirt, a t-shirt, and a bunch of other swag from some of our sponsors. So you know what? If you want to become a channel member, all you got to do is hit that join button down below. Check out the different levels that we have available. And you know what? Help support the channel. And of course, all channel members do get, you know, they start out with a membership decal, and then of course they get their badges decal as well. So that's just a great way to get things started. And of course, there's all kinds of other perks that go along with that as well. Just do want to acknowledge a few people that have hit milestones here at the beginning of May. Darren Davidson Outdoors, celebrating 6 months as a Canoehounds Outdoor Adventure Show supporter. Thank you very much, Darren. Randy Greenall hit the 1-year mark, and Sty North and Ride Paddle Repeat are at 3 years. They've reached a 3-year milestone. So thank you very much to you guys and gals. You know what? It's great to be supported and to have some really good viewers and fans like yourselves. You're all fantastic. Every single one of you that are watching tonight are fantastic. So thank you very much. Let's see here. Moving on. We do have, as usual, we have our birthday wishes. But before we get into the happy stuff, I just do want to pass on a bit of sad news. I was listening to the news last night, and we lost Gordon Lightfoot. Gordon Lightfoot, a Canadian folk singer. You know what? Everybody's heard his music. You know, Edmund Fitzgerald, Sundown, and a whole bunch of other great tunes. And not a lot of people know this, but Gordon Lightfoot was an avid canoeer. He had quite the canoe collection as well. And he really loved the outdoors himself. So, you know what? He's going to be sadly missed by a lot of people who really enjoy Canadian music. But rest in peace there, Gordon. So rest easy. Anyways, back on with the happy stuff. We do have a lot of birthday wishes for this week. Let's start out with channel member Doug Cleland. Doug's over there in the chat. I seen him pop in there. Happy birthday to you, and wishing you many, many more. Let's see here. We also have Christine Redman, who is the better half of Kevin Callan. Heather Baird, Cone from the Dutch Explorer, and of course, my very own daughter, Victoria, is celebrating a birthday this coming week. So happy birthday to you, Vicky, a.k.a. George. And I wouldn't be complete without wishing my beautiful wife, Cheryl, Mrs. Canoehound, a happy 32nd anniversary. I love you, sweetie. If you happen to see this, she's upstairs right now. She's probably not watching, but love you, babe. So yeah, that's all cool. So, you know what? If anybody has any special wishes that they would like to share with everybody, by all means, all you need to do is you need to drop me an email at canoehound@gmail.com. Also, if you have any show ideas or guests that you'd like to see on, probably not this season, but maybe next season, the Canoehounds Outdoor Adventure Show, plant the seed. Drop me your ideas and let me know what you'd like to see on the show. I'd love to try and do that for you. So yeah, that's cool stuff. Couple last things here before we introduce tonight's guest. I just want to see some of the comments that are going through here. I've got a poll going over there on the chat. Please make sure you click on that, and towards the end of the show, we'll see what the results are of that poll, and we'll share that with everybody. And then, of course, if you have any questions, same old routine. Please do put the word question before your questions so that we can more easily see it and I can try and get it into tonight's guest. If I don't get to it right away, by all means, you know what? I will probably post it a little later, or we'll bring it up in a quick little rapid fire type of thing. But please do get your questions across. And you'll also have the opportunity to join us on panel after the 8 o'clock hour. And tonight we do have a swag giveaway, so make sure you stick around for that as well. Without further ado, let's bring on tonight's guest. Tonight's guest has been teaching first aid since 1977, and he's the founder of Global Emergency Consultants and Training Limited, GEMCAT. So if you hear GEMCAT, that's what that stands for. He's also an instructor for the Canadian Heart and Stroke Association and EmergeMart. Please welcome to the show, Douglas Bird. How you doing, Doug?
I'm good, thank you.
Awesome. So we should tell everybody about your pet bear that's behind you first. We'll start out when there we go. That's all. He's
Jemmy is. In fact, we have an ambulance we use for training, and she actually sits on the side of it going. It's kind of the mascot of our wilderness programs.
Even on the brochure.
Yeah, we're on the brochure because the grizzly bear is it's an awesome creature when you think about it. I'm happy to say I've never come nose to nose with one. Come nose to nose with black bears a couple of times, but we hit an agreement. You know, I say hi, they say hi. I take a step, they take a step. They run, I run, and it works well.
Yeah, in opposite directions as well, right?
In opposite directions.
So, Doug, tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what we're going to be talking about tonight.
Okay. Born and raised in the town of Bowmanville, where I'm talking from right now. I was a paramedic for 37 years. I was an advanced care paramedic for about 14 of those. Again, like you said, I have been teaching CPR since 1977 and have taught constantly ever since. I teach everything from basic first aid through to advanced cardiac life support to paramedics, nurses, and doctors. And one of my favorite ones is our advanced wilderness and disaster first aid, which I think we're here to talk about tonight.
That's cool. Yeah, well, you know what, that and everything, because basically all of the different first aid training facets that or levels that there are, a lot of them could play a key role in saving somebody, whether it's in the front country, out on your front porch, or in the back country, right? So that's so even just having a basic knowledge of different things. So with that being said, then you say you started teaching around 1977, but it really started long before that, you were saying.
I have been teaching first aid since I was 19 years old. I am much older than that. I quit counting birthdays. Much older than that now.
Yeah. So what exactly is GEMCAT?
Well, Global Emergency Medical Consultants and Training is a federally incorporated limited liability company. We're global because the company has patents and licenses for some equipment in Canada, the US, England, France, Germany, and Spain. And I have lawyers on 2 continents. Yeah, you don't want to do that.
No, that's cool. So, you know what, the whole premise of this show now, I've had so many people reach out to me about first aid training and stuff like that. And it goes much deeper than just having, your little first aid kit on you, right? These things are very good to have, very handy to have. And this is just like a very, very basic, maybe for the day out type of thing. But what's in there, unless you have proper training for it, short of putting a bandage on your boo-boo, right? let's get into some of the nuts and bolts of backcountry, maybe some scenarios, talking about some of the training things that you actually offer.
Well, I got to set the stage for this. Emergency and standard first aid are legislated in Ontario by the provincial government, by the Workplace Safety Insurance Board. And the premise of that is that somebody is going to show up and take over for you. The concept of our advanced wilderness disaster first aid is nobody's coming. What do you do when you're 3 days back in Algonquin Park? I mean, there's lots of places in Ontario alone, Northern Ontario, no cell service. You're more than 2 hours away from definitive medical help, and you're on your own. One of the scenarios we like to talk about is you and I are canoeing through Algonquin Park.
Mm-hmm.
I slip and break my leg. What are we going to do? Are you going to get me into the canoe and try and paddle me out? Are we going to set up a camp? And maybe you're going to have to go it on your own, because the satellite phone, if anyone's used satellite phones in the deep bush, they really don't work well at all. Tin cans and a string are probably as good. A lot of what we do is critical thinking. What do you do when you're faced with this and no one's coming except you and whoever you're with? And so that's why when we do teach this, my lead instructor for this is ex-Canadian not Special Forces. You'll kill me for that one. Ex-Canadian Forces, and he taught this at the Canadian Forces Battle School. So what we're looking at is more than just the first aid end of it. Now, we bring no modern gear to our courses, except a few bandages and some splinting material that is actually made out of branches and whatnot, because most places they go, if we take axes to their trees, they're going to get upset at us. But we teach you how to do everything with nothing, right from turning a pillowcase into a bandage or a dressing to how to make a traction splint out of 4 pieces of wood. And that's kind of the premise. Our motto is improvise, adapt, overcome, which I admit I shamelessly stole from Clint Eastwood and Heartbreak Ridge, but that's what we're talking about. It's not exactly the same. Besides, Clint said it was okay. So yeah, it's all about how to make sure you survive. So we throw stuff in it that isn't strictly first aid. Fire starting, shelter building, water purification, land navigation with map and compass. I remember the first time my first GPS I got, and I went for walkabout up where we have a camp north of Bancroft, and it quit working. Mm-hmm. And I'm going, ooh.
What now?
And the important thing is, these are skills. These are real skills that we're losing, and we shouldn't. I love technology. When I was still a working medic, I'm the first one to jump in and say, new technology, let's do it. But I'm also the first one to say, let's not lose our old skills. And even when I teach first aid, I teach some stuff if I've got the time, depending on the class, but I like to throw in stuff that isn't taught anymore. Mm-hmm. Because there just isn't the time to do it, because everything's got to be done faster and quicker, which isn't always the best. But do you know what the most important tool is?
I would think your brain, thinking things through. Yeah.
Yeah. Thinking, not panicking. And when you train, you don't panic, and that is a real thing. I know people look at people like myself or firefighters or cops and say, I don't know how you do this without getting all wound up and upset. And I said, well, it's because we train. We train and we train and we train, so that when something happens, it's a reflex. I don't even have to think about it. By the time I finished working as a paramedic, and when I retired, I didn't have to think about how I was going to intubate a non-breathing patient. I could just do it because I built up that muscle memory over the years. And this is what we try to do with this, and have fun too.
But ultimately, so all in all your training courses that you do offer, you're not trying to turn a person into a doctor. That's not the thing.
Oh heavens, no. I'm not. The advanced stuff we teach in the advanced wilderness first aid and disaster is, yeah, there is some advanced stuff that we're very clear off the front. This is not something you would do in downtown Toronto. But if I dislocate my shoulder, again, back in Algonquin Park, and we're going to have to take 3 days getting out of there, are you going to leave my shoulder dislocated for 3 days? Probably not. I'm not going to like it. So I'm going to show you how to work back in. And again, this is real last ditch stuff. Anytime we do this, because the potential complications of doing that are very high. It's a risk reward balance we try and do with this.
Okay. So now I mentioned too off the top of the show that there's different facets of first aid training, right? There's like your standard CPR, and you have like. Okay, can you take us through the varying levels of first aid training that would take us up to, let's say, wilderness first aid training for a person like myself who enjoys the backcountry and wants to know how to help his buddy or something along that lines if somebody gets an injury or something backcountry?
Sure. Well, the quickest and easiest one is emergency first aid. That's 8 hours. In fact, I'm doing one all day tomorrow. After that, standard first aid is 16 hours. Advanced first aid is 40, and it adds a little more into it. And then we get into what we call the emergency first responder, and that's about 80 hours. And then the emergency medical responder is about 120, 140, depending on who's teaching it. I have to make the note here. These courses are not governed by any legislation in the province of Ontario or most of the country. You have to be careful who you're taking it from. Because there are people out there who just want to make money.
Right.
We just want to make sure everybody comes home from their trips. So we like everybody to have had standard first aid at some point before we do the wilderness first aid. Just because it's a 40-hour course, the advanced wilderness first aid. Generally, the first 16 is rehashing standard first aid. I don't want to spend that time. We try and get it done in a weekend. So again, we got 2 coming up in June. We'll meet Friday evening. We start at 7. We'll go to 10, and you stay right there with us where we are. And then we get back up, feed you breakfast, and start again at 8 o'clock Saturday morning and go to 10 o'clock Saturday night, and then do it all over again from 8 until 6 on Sunday.
So they're long days. They are long days, right?
Yeah. But
I'm sure
we feed you. We give you breaks. Oh yeah. Oh Lord, I can't keep up that kind of pace. More.
Yeah. No, but I'm sure the way you're teaching too, because the training that I've seen, like I've been on your website, I've checked out some of your videos, seen the video you did with Ray Mercer there with dog first aid and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, we teach pet first aid dogs. I have a CPR mannequin of a dog. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's entertaining. If anybody wants to take a course that you're offering or any other wilderness first aid training personnel, it's something that you got to want to get out there and do first off, right? So the chances are, if anybody's coming out, they're not going to be standing back in the corner going, "Oh darn, when's this going to be over?" Right? You got to keep everybody interactive and actually hands-on, right? Yeah.
Good mix. Everything we learn inside, we practice outside. We never cancel. The crazier the weather, the more we love it, the better it is. Blinding snowstorms. We tell everybody, you come prepared, because we're going to be inside, we're going to be outside.
Yeah. So take us through like a typical weekend, if you could,
Okay.
We'll just talk about the wilderness first aid. But okay, wait a second. Let me step back one here, because I'm getting way ahead of ourselves, I think. I was mentioning to you that I noticed that some of your prerequisites to take wilderness first aid training is to have previously had first aid training of some sort. I mentioned to you that my last time I had wilderness first aid, or not wilderness first aid, any first aid training at all, was probably 25 years ago, 25 plus years ago. And you said, well, that's at least you have that, right?
Yeah.
And some of it has actually come in handy, and that's why I want to take it a step farther. But so, like, for somebody like myself that may be in the chat over there, somebody else that's looking at doing a course, is that suitable as the prerequisite to getting into wilderness first aid training?
Yes. Yeah. And again, I don't want to run it over 3 weekends. If we keep it at 40 hours, and we either got to do pretty much 3 weekends or 1 entire week. Very few people have time for that. So we put the prerequisite in of standard first aid, and then we get the next 24 hours in over the weekend. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So now we come all the way up there to Bowmanville to see Doug and your crew. And where do we start? We check in, get ourselves comfortable, and then right off to class type of thing. Right? Where do we start?
Well, I'll tell you what. The next one, which is in Oshawa in June at Camp Samac, the Scout camp there. We'll probably be there after lunch, getting everything set up, because someone's got to set up the land navigation course, like an orienteering course. The ladies get the because we feed you the entire thing. We get everything set up for about. We start at 7 o'clock, and then we start at 7 o'clock with. I'm sorry, I'm getting notes from my wife.
And still tap. Okay. It's okay. I didn't hear you.
Okay, that's good. I did kind of pound on my desk a little bit. So anyway, 7 o'clock we start with an introduction. I introduce everybody. We talk about what is wilderness, where this is applicable, which is basically any time you're more than an hour to 2 hours away from definitive medical help. During a disaster, think of Hurricane Fiona. Just a little while ago out on the East Coast, there were parts of Newfoundland that they could not get to for 4 and 5 days. What do you do? Or if you're like my wife and I, foreign travel. We like to travel places that perhaps are not the best. Like I kind of crossed into Haiti one day, and then from the Dominican Republic and beat a hasty retreat. But we've done the Nile from the top to the bottom as escorts on a school trip, and we try and get everybody to buy into why we're there, what's going on, and then usually Andre takes over and he does stretchers, several improvised stretchers, because we're going to do those all weekend long. Then we finish about 10, and then we start in the morning, and we just, again, some of it's medical, some of it's trauma, but we're going to show you stuff you've probably never done before. So yeah, and that's sort of how the weekend goes.
Okay, that's cool. And like the hands-on part there, like, do you like just grab people out of like, hey, you come and give this a try type of thing, or do you just ask for volunteers? Or
we generally ask for volunteers, but we get into everything. A lot of it's leading up to Saturday night.
Yeah.
We run a big exercise Saturday night, and I got to admit, again, in the winter it's more fun because it's pitch dark, where we have people come in, and we make them up with injuries, and we hide them all over the place, and then they have, because one of the things we do teach is basic search techniques. If you've lost one of your hikers, if you've lost one of your kids, don't panic. Here's how to look for them. And everybody has to kick in on that. They almost shot me one night. We were up in Buckhorn, which is north of Peterborough, and we'd had a lot of snow. And there was this great big field. It was about 3 feet deep, and they hadn't searched it. And I took the team leader aside and said, "Why haven't you searched this field?" They said, "Well, we can see no footprints." I said, "That's a good look, but that's not good enough. What if someone's at the other end?" Which there was. I put them there. So I actually made them search the entire field on snowshoes.
Yeah.
Find the patient, snowshoe out all their gear, treat them, make a stretcher, and then snowshoe them all the way back out of the field again. And A couple of them called me bad names after that one. I don't know why.
That's what you told them. Hey, that's what you paid for.
Yeah. If it was easy, stay home. Because if you're in the bush and you're in a position where something has gone wrong, and trust me, I am a master of disaster. Every time we go somewhere, something goes wrong. I have found dead and dying people all over the place. I don't know what it is. The last one was 2019 and coming in Costa Rica, and we're heading to the airport. One of the passengers got really sick. They pulled the bus over. He comes out, he collapsed, and I'm kind of looking down the hallway, the alleyway of the bus going, yeah, I guess it's my turn. So I get up and I go, and he is really sick. He has no blood pressure. We called an ambulance. It took an hour and 20 minutes to get there. By that time, the bus had kind of gone. But I look at my wife. My wife's in the window going bye-bye at me as they left me on the side of the road in Costa Rica.
Wow.
The ambulance shows up, and my Spanish is not bad, not good enough for this. And I'm going, intervenus. He goes, oh, no, senor. I said, when I was looking for ECG, and he goes, oh, no, senor. Oh, my God. So finally got the guy into the hospital. His wife called me, and he was in for 3 days. But I tell you, when you're sitting by yourself at the side of the dusty road in the middle of nowhere, you want to have your wits about you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you never know when it's going to happen, right? I've told the story many times to my viewers there about, what was it, about 4 years ago? 4 years ago, maybe 5 years ago, we were out on a trip, and one of the guys on the trip actually caught himself on a branch and cut himself like full circle here around the eye. Good thing he didn't get right into the eye. And we were fortunate that we were only, our first day in type of thing. And with my limited skills that I remember from back when I had my first aid training 25 plus years ago, we actually patched him up pretty good, sent him back into town, and he went into Timmins and he got himself patched up. And when he come back, he said the doctor complimented whoever patched them up because did a really good job, made their job easy, right? And it's like that made me feel good because I did something right. It's not like I packed it with dirt or anything. We bandaged them up nice, gauze, the tape, or like kept the wound closed, and it was something that really worked out. So yeah, you never know when these things are going to happen, and especially when we're in a backcountry situation, it's good to have some sort of knowledge or training, and that's where you guys come into play. Yeah.
Duct tape.
Yeah. Are you an outdoorsman yourself? Do you do a lot of camping or backpacking or anything like that?
Not as much as I used to, but I grew up in Beaumont. Was a very small town. We grew up when I was 16 years old. With a bunch of us, we'd all go duck hunting in the morning before we went to high school. I've been on canoe trips to Algonquin Park. Again, my cousin and I own a camp up north of Bancroft, north of Maynooth. I get out any chance I can get. I don't sleep on the ground anymore.
Yeah,
I had my days of doing that. They're now past.
Well, you know what? I'm beyond those days too. That's why I'm a hammock camper. So that's a good thing. Let's take a couple of questions here that have come through already, just to try and keep up with them here. Donald Dakota is asking, does aspirin actually help with a heart attack?
Absolutely. Acetylsalicylic acid, aspirin, yeah. It's actually considered now a frontline drug. It is what's called a platelet aggregation inhibitor, which means that it stops the clot from getting worse. And there is some research out there that says getting aspirin in really quick is almost as good as getting the clot busters, 3 or 4 hours down the road. No, aspirin is really good. So 160 milligrams, the little ones chewed and small, up to 325. Someday they'll figure out what the actual proper dose is, and then the Bayer Aspirin Company will come out with a 102 milligram aspirin. But yeah, no, it's very good.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask this then, and this directly relates to me. Years ago, I found out I was anaphylactic with acetylsalicylic acid. Taking aspirin, head blow up, throat, get me to the hospital right now. So for many, many, many years, I obviously stay away from it, right? So Tylenol is my painkiller of choice type of thing, right?
Mhm.
But knowing that the importance of aspirin with heart attacks, went and got tested. Now they tell me that I'm no longer anaphylactic with it. I guess bodies change. They
It
say
happened. Yeah,
7 years you go through this cycle. Your eyes go bad, they get better, whatever it might
Mhm.
be. But their way of testing me for acetylsilic acid was, well, here, take this and go sit go sit in the waiting room. You start feeling something, let us know. We'll get you in EpiPen, yeah, right?
Whack you with
But
that. Yeah.
yeah. So are there any other remedies? Because I'm still really, really leery with aspirin, even though they say I'm no longer anaphylactic with it and stuff. Is there anything else that would be a type of a remedy like an aspirin if you were having a heart attack in the backcountry? Or
No. It is. It's the only thing.
it's the
Other
only
than
thing, eh?
there's the only thing is because of what it does, and it's very specific to acetylsilic acid. But I can tell you, if you're in the backcountry and you've got a headache or chest pain, if you take the bark of the willow tree
Yeah,
and boil that, you will get acetylsilic acid out of that.
yeah, yeah. I wonder if that. Yeah. Well, like I say, I guess I got to take heed with what the doctor said and just not worry about it anymore. But still, have an EpiPen handy, maybe, right? That's always a
Oh,
good thing.
absolutely. I mean, if epi and Benadryl, because you need them both, we put one on top of the other.
Yeah,
Epinephrine stops the reaction that's going on, but it doesn't make it better. So when you're exposed to something you're allergic to, the body releases a drug called histamine in anaphylaxis. It releases it in stupid amounts, and so you need to take your antihistamine, your Benadryl, and that really counteracts.
okay,
EpiPen
cool.
can save your life. Benadryl's
Yeah.
gonna make you feel better.
So, okay, on the lines of Benadryl, then, is one better than the other? Liquid, tablet? 'Cause-
Liquid generally tends to go in quicker.
right.
The tablets are okay. We usually tell people just chew them up. Now, you
Yeah.
got to remember, with me, I usually stick you in the arm with a needle, but
You had the quick remedy, eh? Okay, another question here. Let's see here. What are the unique challenges of first aid for solo backcountry travelers?
this is going to sound flippant, but I'm dead serious. Is not dying. I know there was a case down in the States. This lady was a solo backpacker and she went missing for a couple of decades. And they finally found her that she had, I think they said she gotten hurt or something and she just couldn't get herself out. And that's the big problem of being by yourself. What do you do if you slip and break your ankle or break your leg?
Yeah.
It's tough. You've got to have, really tight schedules if you can. Hey, I'm going in here and I'm coming out here. And when you don't show up, then we call the authorities and start looking for you.
Yeah.
That is a huge one.
Always better to travel, I guess, with a partner, right? A lot of us that are canoers and stuff, we all pride ourselves on getting out there and doing a solo trip. But yeah, if you get yourself into a real pickle, even if you have like your Spot or your Garmin InReach or Zoleo device or whatever, that might be the beacon, but that doesn't mean that the cavalry is going to come flying in, within a 10-minute time span, right? You have time that you have to get yourself stabilized, I guess is the term, right?
Yeah, it's I've done it. I've been in that position, and it was with my first. It was oh my God, it was so long ago. It was a Magellan Gold, and I thought I am going to go for a walk places I've never been before because I wasn't too sure, and I got way back in the bush from the camp, and I stepped in a hole and put my ankle over, and there's a really cool bandage for this, but I'm looking at this machine going, yeah, it knows where my body's going to be, but nobody else does. So I put the bandage on my ankle. I always carry painkillers in my vest with me. I popped a bunch of those. I cut myself a staff, and I walked out. But I'll tell you, by the time I got out, I was not happy, and thankfully I was close enough to walk out. and much worse. And I don't know when they would have found me because I was no place they normally went. Yeah, it was dumb. What makes us effective at this is most of us have done stupid stuff and survived, and we learn from it.
You know, I keep thinking back about being a soloist in the backcountry or being there with a partner, and a couple of YouTubers come to mind. Basically, for me, right, being in this whole YouTube community, a lot of the people that we follow, you see them becoming injured out there or having something that's very life threatening. I'll give you 3 cases as an example, and most of the people in the chat will know about this. You might not know of the people yourself unless you're a YouTube junkie, kind of like we are, Doug. But you know, Tunis Richards, he put an axe into his foot. You know, he is an EMT, so him and his wife are both EMTs. So, but he had her to rely on to get him out, right? I think about Jim Baird, who also another axe injury, you know, but he had his brother there to help, and it was a pretty serious, big wound to the hand. Then you think about like Jonathan from Lost Lakes, who tore his meniscus out there in the middle of nowhere, and he had his partner to help take a person out. So that's a consideration that you always need to have when you're in the backcountry is when you're by yourself, what are you going to do in the case of an emergency like this?
Well, even one of my heroes is Les Stroud.
Right.
I've been watching him for in fact, I was when he started Survivor Man, I was watching one with my dad, and I looked at him and said, "Gee, he looks familiar." And we realized that years before at the Sportsman Show when it was down at the C&E grounds, we watched him do fire starting. But even he had mechanisms, you know, if they didn't hear from him, you know, there's limits, so someone's going to come and look after you.
Yeah,
hopefully.
Yeah, for sure. That was a great question, Swifty. Thanks very much. Let's see here. Untamed Ontario. Let's see. We got when camping, people often ask, aren't you afraid of bears? No one ever asks, do you have appropriate footwear? What are some of the misconceptions about relative dangers in the backcountry?
Yeah, footwear is probably, you're more likely to have hurt yourself with crappy footwear than anything else. Black bears generally don't. I've seen lots of black bears. There's only one thing in the bush that truly scares me, and that's the moose. I've gone nose to nose with some bulls a couple of times when we were hunting, and they scare me. Bears don't. But yeah, you're more likely to hurt yourself by misstepping. I'm a firm believer in proper hiking boots that come above the ankle with a good heel on them. It's just so important.
Yeah. Stubbing a toe, even the discomfort that comes with stubbing a toe while you're out there, right?
Yeah.
Something so simple as that, you know. I'm just as guilty as the next guy. One of my choice footwears is like either my Keen sandals, or even I've been known to wear Crocs, good fitting Crocs in the backcountry. But you get them wet and your feet just slide, and you're gonna blow an ankle out like that. So yeah, I guess footwear could be a pretty important thing to really take into consideration when you're back there. Yeah.
Barring that, you need to have someone present who knows how to fix it. It was kind of funny. I've been trying to get my cousin, who's the other owner of our camp, to come and take the wilderness first aid course for years. And Ed always says, no, it's okay. I got you. And then about 4 years ago, we were up in the spring taking the shutters off the camp, because if you don't put up shutters, someone's just going to break in and steal everything. And I still don't know why I did it, but they're on a big hinge, and I let them loose, and I turned and walked away, and this 40-pound shutter came down and it whacked me in the head. Thank God it was a head, no place that would actually hurt me. But I'm lying there kind of seeing stars, and it goes, "You okay?" And I went, "I don't know." He goes, "Maybe I should take the course." I said, "Yeah, I'm not immune. I am not immune to dumb. Nobody is. You know, I've been very lucky that I haven't managed to kill myself so far."
Yeah. So when it comes to your training that you are providing out there, what are some of the key things that you are teaching in your classes or in your courses for the wilderness first aid? Are there things that you really put a big focus on as opposed to other things?
Yeah, thinking. Critical thinking skills.
Mhm.
We're really big on that. Sit down. How are you going to solve the problem? Think. Everyone talks about thinking outside the box. That's not an easy thing to do for some people. And because that goes into everything from what are we going to do next to how are we going to get Doug's carcass out of here, to things like, what if Doug drops dead? What are we going to do? That's usually one of my first questions when we start off is I said, we're all, 3 days back in Algonquin Park and I drop dead. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And the smart answers are either we're going to hang in a tree or dig a hole, because you're not going to do CPR on me for 3 days. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
You don't have a defibrillator, and it'd be strange if you did. Or one person said they would hook me up to a current bush, and I said I don't think that one's going to work either.
Current bush.
You gotta have you got to have a weird sense of humor to hang around with people like that. And all this goes in. Like I said, do we make a camp? Do half try and paddle out? Do we know? Okay, there's a ranger station 5 miles to the southwest. Do we try and do a map and compass and walk through? A lot of it's about thinking with the skills thrown in.
Mhm.
And the big thing is know your limitations. And we say that from the moment we start is do not hurt yourself.
Right.
I actually had a one-armed scouter do this, and he did very well.
Yeah.
He even carried the stretcher.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, if he's only got one arm, I'm sure he's in tune with being able to do stuff like that, because
You should have seen him shoot a bow and arrow.
Yeah.
You shot better than I did.
That's good. Let's get a couple more questions here.
Okay.
Let's see here. We got Evan Lefebvre asking, once patients are stable and if an SOS device is triggered, do you know the fees associated here in Ontario?
None.
Do you have any knowledge of that?
They don't charge for search and rescue. No.
No.
Because search and rescue is going to come from the feds. It's going around Ontario. It's going to be 424. I think it's 424 wing out of Trenton, who have the SAR techs and the helicopters and whatnot, and they're the ones who are going to just come out and parachute. Those guys are amazing. They'll go out and they'll parachute in to you and get you ready to take you out. But at the best of my knowledge, there are no fees associated with that.
Right. That's funny, because I always wondered that too, because I use a Garmin InReach, and one of the things that they do is they want to sell you insurance. They want to sell you rescue insurance. Right. And I always heard, but I never knew if it was just a myth or if it was an actual fact that you would or would not be charged for rescue.
I could also be completely wrong too, but I had in all my years, I've never heard of anybody being given a bill for this.
Okay.
If you're stupid, maybe. Did you know that there are parts in Canada that are designated no rescue areas?
Oh, is that right?
Yes, there are parts of northern Canada where the federal government, by law, is not obligated to come and get you. They probably will, but they're under no obligation to try and help you. It's so remote.
That's interesting. Do you know what regions or what areas that would be?
I'm not completely sure. It's very far north.
Right. Okay.
And I don't know because that's my instructor Andre. This is kind of his specialties, that kind of stuff.
Okay. And here, right from Evan again here. Since EpiPens are so hard to get on hand, is there any alternative for someone if someone goes anaphylactic?
Not really. They're not hard to get. Just walk into a drugstore and buy one.
Is that right? They don't need to be prescribed.
You can go and
they're
buy one.
Expensive, right?
They're expensive. Now, the nice thing about the EpiPen, there's about 4 or 5 different ones on the market. The EpiPen actually has 5 doses in it. You just got to know how to do it. And that's something we teach you during the course, is how to get 5 shots out of one EpiPen.
Is that right? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I thought they were, and you know what? I've had EpiPen for a number of years for my anaphylactic reaction to acetylsalicylic acid, right?
Yeah.
But I've never had to use one. When they have an expiry date, is that a hard expiry date, or is that like, buying the discount meat at the deli because it's turning a little brown?
Not trying to offend anybody, but expiry dates are a scam. And I hate saying that. It's the best before, because they have to put on. The U.S. military did a huge study. I've here somewhere in the mess of my desk, I've got the 10-year study, and they said at 10 years, most drugs properly stored were still 85% effective.
Okay.
That's at 10 years. I haven't seen the 20-year paper yet.
And now, what would proper storage? Because you know what, I do carry an EpiPen in my first aid kit that I take into the backcountry, and I'm sure it's quite expired, right?
Yes.
It's probably a good idea maybe to try and freshen it up sometime soon.
Probably.
Yeah, but is it one of those cases where, use it because you got it and hope for the best type of thing, or like it's been through heat, it's been through cool, it's been through heat, it's been through cool.
Anything you leave in especially if you leave in your car, like a lot of people carry Narcan, leave the Narcan in the glove box. After a year of hot, cold, is probably not very good. No, properly stored would be in your house with you when you went out somewhere. And even in the cold, most people keep them like on an inside pocket to keep them, because they don't want the epi to freeze. So you just want to make sure you're not doing that. But if it's all you've got, then that's what you're going to use, because you haven't got any choice.
I'm going to ask everybody in the chat this here. How many people in the chat carry an EpiPen with them? Put a number 1 in the chat if you actually bring in an EpiPen with you into the backcountry as part of your first aid kit. Just curious to know. Just curious to know. And now the questions are coming in hot and heavy here. This is what I like, because this is the part that gets everybody all educated. Sorry, I'm hitting the wrong buttons here because I'm getting all excited here over questions coming in. The Dutch Explorer is asking, what are the most commonly forgotten items that should be in everyone's backcountry first aid kit?
Oh, that's a good one. Mostly people forget to bring them, but inside, or they don't open them up. And I've done it myself, where I've had a look at something I haven't touched in a while, and ooh, there's not much in there anymore. But you have to make sure you've got the basics. And the 4 things we really have to worry about are airway problems, and that's training. Breathing problems, now that could be your Ventolin, your epinephrine, something like that. Cardiac arrest, which we're not going to do much about in the backcountry, and catastrophic bleeding. You've got to be able to look after those 4 things, which are the 4 things that are going to kill you in the first 5 minutes. The rest is just, and again, when my kids grew up, you can always tell the kids whose parents are in the medical field, because their cuts are covered with toilet paper and Scotch tape. And if we have anybody in the medical field listening, they're snickering because they know I'm right. That's what it always looked like. Improvise, adapt, overcome. Again, that's the basis of our wilderness first aid, is how to do everything with nothing.
Okay.
But just,
so with the wilderness first aid training that you offer, is it more first aid, or is it more practical? Because you say about both, yeah.
Yeah, because we're going to teach you, in the advanced part, we're going to teach you some medical skills like resetting bones, relocating joints, and again, I got to say, this is only in the most dire of circumstances. We talk a bit about drugs, what drugs to carry, how they can be used, in combinations, things to look for, and then again, a lot of the physical end is the practical end. A lot of it's around patching up somebody's leg is easy. Getting them out of there is the hard part. We spend a fair amount of time on that.
Whether it's alive or deceased, right?
Yeah, actually, my dad's a retired policeman. He had that once when he was up north fishing. Is they come around a bend in a river, and a guy was waving at him, and his buddy had died. So they paddled out to the nearest road, which was miles away, flagged down someone to call the OPP. who showed up, called the coroner. The coroner showed up, who then wanted to see the body. So my dad had to paddle him all the way back. And so the coroner could go, yes, he is dead. And then stuck him in the canoe and paddled him back out again. Evacuation or again, something else like literally putting the body in a tree like you would your food catch. Some of the stuff we talk about is not pleasant at all, but it's things you need to think about.
I've had this here on up on the screen here. Tim from Super Good Camping says, check the expiration dates on your first aid kit and buy a new one before you throw the expired one, right?
Absolutely.
How many items in a first aid kit? Like what are some of the common items that you should be keeping an eye on to make sure you have fresh stuff? Nothing worse than going for a dried out bandage, right?
Exactly. Look at your bandages, look at your tape. If you have, like we recommend, benzoyl chloride wipes, BZK, open one up every year and just make sure that they're not actually, because even in the packages they will dry out. And just go through everything and look at it and refresh your memory with what you have, and maybe think about something you want to add. Though maybe this year you think, something, I want to add a tourniquet in instead of an improvised. I want a real one. Yeah. And if you give me a call, I'll cut you a good deal out, because we also sell everything from band-aids to defibrillators. So
I noticed that on your website there. Yeah, people can pick all that stuff up. So after the 8 o'clock break, I was thinking maybe we could kind of go through what makes up a good first aid kit. I'm sure you have all that probably right up here, the knowledge base. I wish I had something I could actually post on screen that people could do like a screenshot of, but we'll let you explain all that.
Never thought of that. You've done that, yeah.
Yeah. So KC Happy Camper, Mr. Callan here. How many days to go before not pooping before it starts poisoning inside, and what to do about it after that? I hear of a lot of people that go into the backcountry and you hear them say, you know what, I haven't gone in like 4 days.
My youngest cousin was never a big fan of the up north. He didn't like the cold. He actually went for 7 days once without going. I don't know how he did it. After 2 to 3 days, you're going to start feeling crappy. Right, no pun intended. It's not really going to poison you, but it's going to back up, and eventually it'll back up, and it'll start making you just ill, because it's there. Your belly will get bloated. It'll get hard. And it is just not fun. If you're hitting day 3, then it's time to start thinking about, again, if you've got a proper kit. I have my drug kit's got all kinds of different kinds of laxatives in it, and the other way too, because you never know what you're going to run into.
Yeah, the old typical. I've gone to Costa Rica, and I had something in the ice cube that had me on the toilet the whole trip, right? Yeah. So you want to be able to plug it up at some point as well, too. Cool.
And I have made mistakes on this stuff too. When we were on the school trip and coming back in Egypt, I have a hard and fast rule. If it's not a first world country, I don't eat anything that's not cooked. And the last night we were there in Cairo, they had this huge buffet with salads, and I lost my mind and I ate it. And I did something I think very few people have done. It actually vomited on 3 different continents the next day: Africa, Europe, and North America. So you see, you make the mistakes, you'll never do it a second time.
Yeah, for sure. Untamed Ontario's asking, what are some first aid hacks? Example, duct tape as wound closure, especially using things that can be found in nature. Give us some education on some of this stuff.
Okay, well,
this is right up your alley, Doug.
One of our favorite ones that we teach on the Saturday is how to take 2. Well, it depends on the size of the person's legs. I'm 6'2", so you'd probably want it about 4 feet long for me, with a Y in it, 2 of them. Put one each side of my leg, put a cross piece in the middle, and then take if you've got a bandage or a piece of sheet or something, and then you make a windlass and you make a traction splint out of it. We talk about shelter building with natural and man-made stuff, but I go back to the duct tape. Fix your raincoat, fix your shelter, bandage you up, use it to hold the splints in place. There's just so much out there you can do.
Mm-hmm. Do you teach or do you instruct on any natural remedies out there for any ailments, like, you know, a poultice or something to put onto you know, a wound or anything like that?
We're looking at. I think we're going to expand into that. My wife is the plant person in the house, and I've been trying to get her to sit down and do that. But there's simple stuff you can do. One of the real old one is a bread and milk poultice. If you've got an infection, you don't have antibiotics. You take bread and you soak it with milk and you put it on and you cover it all up snugly. And what will happen is the bacteria loves, and it will start drawing it out. Another great one that is a lot of people don't think of is honey. Honey's antimicrobial. If you've got a bad wound and you don't have any antibiotics, slather. It can't be pasteurized. It's got to be raw natural honey. You just slather it in, and it will prevent infection.
Well, one problem with that is trying to get the honey out of the hive without getting pulverized by the bees, right?
Especially if you're allergic to the bees you have an expired EpiPen.
Yeah. I did ask that question about the EpiPen. There's quite a few people actually carry EpiPens with them back into the backcountry. Yeah.
Well, I can tell you what we did when we went to Egypt. Is I sat down with an Egyptian physician and said, what is the state of the healthcare where I'm going, which is what you should do anywhere you go. And he said, outside of Cairo, it was crap. That you and Faye together are better trained than most of the physicians. He's an Egyptian trained physician. We carried IV solutions. You know, we carried intravenous drugs. We carried intramuscular drugs because we looked at the potential. And that's a big thing. This is look at the potential for hazards and then act accordingly. And we had some pretty sick kids on that trip. Again, mostly gastro stuff, so it wasn't a big deal. But by planning ahead, you know, this is why when they go to things like the big mountain climbs, you go to Everest, there's usually a physician with the group. Lots of places, if you're going to go somewhere, you can go to your physician, or there's travel physicians and say, I'm going to this area. What shots, like we had to get yellow fever shots to go to Egypt. Can I take some extra antibiotics? What do you think I should have with me? And most of them are pretty good about you know, a little bit, not a lot, but and stay away from narcotics if you can. That's just problematic in a lot of the world. I'll hear them in Ontario, but yeah, planning ahead is just such a big thing.
Yeah. What about these companies? I had somebody reach out to me about a year ago, and they wanted me to. They wanted to send me. They had like 5 or 6 different types of antibiotics, and they wanted to have that in case of the apocalypse, right? Is that advisable? Have you ever heard of that? Something like that before?
I've heard of it. I'd stay right away with them.
Yeah.
Everywhere I know in the world, antibiotics are by prescription only. So I would be very careful with somebody like that about what I was taking. You should never know what's actually in it. Yeah, I've seen those, and I wouldn't touch them.
Well, okay, understand.
I'll probably do tomorrow.
Well,
okay.
We're at 8:00. I'm just going to take our quick 8:00 break here, Doug, and then we'll come back. We'll invite some people on panel to see if anybody has any questions that they'd like to ask. And you know, this guy, everybody is the expert. He's the instructor. He's the one that's going to teach us how to survive any medical ailments that we might have in the backcountry, short of just dropping dead, right? So, yeah, we'll touch on that as soon as we come back after commercial here.
Okay.
Thanks.
50 years, we've been connecting people with nature by building classic Canadian canoe designs using the best materials available. We built a reputation on durable, dependable canoes that allow you to focus on what's important, whether that's unplugging in remote wilderness, spending quality time with your favorite people, or nailing the perfect line. Visit novacraft.com to find the perfect canoe for you and locate your nearest authorized dealer.
Tonight's episode of Canoehounds Outdoor Adventure Show is brought to you by OTG Meals. Fresh, freeze-dried, small batch meals made for people on the go. Algonquin Outfitters, with 4 key locations in and around Algonquin Park to serve your backcountry needs. Kid Products, stick stoves and reflector ovens proudly made in Canada. And Novacraft Canoes, connecting you with nature in Canadian-made canoes since 1970. And welcome back to the second half of Canoehounds Outdoor Adventure Show, the portion we call overtime. I'm just going to drop the link here in the chat. If anybody wants to pop in and ask myself or Doug a question, please do so. You know what? We got room to maybe get 2 or 3 people here within the next hour's time frame. But in the meantime, let's just bring Doug back up here on panel and let's move on with the second half of the show. And Doug, so I was mentioning that it'd be probably a cool idea to go through a list of items that, you know, everybody should have in their, we'll call it their basic first aid kit that they would bring into the backcountry. Where do you want to start with that?
That's always a good thing. You know, like my personal first aid kit is a backpack, and I would not want to carry it through the backcountry. Simple stuff. Triangular bandages, gauze 4x4 dressings, tape. That's the basic stuff. There's very little you can't do with those 2 items.
Mm-hmm.
The rest is nice. Band-aids are nice. Because that's something you're probably going to use regularly. But you can go as high as you want, as big as you want. But truly, if like when we're up north and I'm in the bush, I carry a small first aid kit. It's about like this, and it has a couple of triangular bandages. It has some band-aids, a bunch of 4x4s. It zippers up, and I hold it together with a tourniquet, because that's something, you know, I'm always concerned about is a tourniquet. Yes, I can improvise one, but they're not as good as the manufactured ones. They just don't work as well.
Right. Okay. So I showing this on a few occasions. Are you familiar with this particular kit?
I've seen those before. Yep.
Yeah, so like it's pretty basic, right? It says it's good for camping, paddling, hiking. It's got a picture of a carabiner, so I don't know if that's supposed to be climbing or what, right? But it's pretty basic. It's not full of all kinds of fancy stuff. But do you have, or do you know of any first aid kits that a person can purchase to start out, like as a starter kit, and then they can build on that type of thing?
Yeah, and there's lots of different ways to do it. It depends what you want to do. Again, most of us in the outdoors tend to like the soft-sided stuff. Picking up a bag like at a surplus store. Like I know in my area here, we have a place called Hero, a surplus, and they've got all kinds of bags that are around. And this, just start picking stuff up. Again, just be careful. Drugstores. I was in the drugstore getting, I won't say which one it was. I was in a drugstore getting my prescriptions filled the other day. And I was walking through the first aid section, and a roll of gauze that I sell for 75 cents, they were asking $6 for it.
Wow. Yeah.
It's their markup. Again, it's not my big thing. My big thing is not the sales end of it. Yes, Gemca has to make a profit. We got to pay the bills, but it's I want to make sure everyone's got the stuff they need. I'm more interested in that than making huge profit off it.
Sure. Well, there's profit and then there's gouging, right?
Well, that's very true. Yes.
Yeah. Post COVID now, that seems to be everybody wants to gouge nowadays because they have to make up for 2 years of being behind type of thing, right?
Gone grocery shopping lately.
Yeah.
So yeah,
for sure.
just again, and I'm not saying you have to call me. That's fine. Carry something. Maybe some people like go into a dollar store and get a small hard-sided one that's waterproof.
Yeah.
And you put some stuff in that. The best kit is the one you're going to carry.
Right. That makes sense.
Sitting in the trunk, it's not going to do you any good.
And you got to make yourself familiar with the kit and what's in the kit as well, right? Like if you have a kit and it's unopened, like give you a case and example, we purchased a first aid kit from Costco, and they usually have, it's like a big case like this. It's like, thick, 4 or 5 inches thick. And it's like a folder. It's like a binder, and it's got multiple things in there. You got everything from like poison ivy treatment to gauzes and sterilizers and eye wash, or all these different things in there. But a lot of that stuff is like, am I going to carry a pack into the bush that's, the thing weighs probably 4 or 5 pounds. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, like eye wash and stuff like that. Am I going to carry eye wash with me, or if you get something in your eye, am I just going to take my water bottle and wash your eye out?
Right. The practicality thing, right? So the main thing is making yourself familiar with this stuff. Don't forget, everybody, we're going to have a swag giveaway here in a few moments, but I see we do have somebody in the basement. We got Tim from Super Good Camping. How you doing, Tim?
I'm doing well, Dennis. How are you guys?
Good. Long time no see.
It's been a while.
Yeah. A hot minute,
question.
you say, right?
So the EpiPen thing, it has generated a great deal of interest in the chat. So I make the assumption that a whole bunch of people are anaphylactic. Is that the right term? I'm not. Nobody in my camping community, which is essentially my family, we're not. Should I be carrying an EpiPen? And if so, how do I go about getting one?
Well, again, you can just go get them out of a drugstore. Again, it's interesting. It's a good point, because we have laws in Ontario. The Regulated Health Professions Act says who can and cannot stick needles in people. If it's your EpiPen, if it's Dennis's EpiPen, I could very easily help him. I can stick him in the leg with his own EpiPen. Where we start getting a mismatch between the laws and ethics and your own morality is, we are up somewhere and we're in a picnic area in northern Ontario, and someone says, "Oh my God, my husband's just been bit by a bee, stung by a bee, and he's allergic. I don't have my EpiPen. Can I legally take someone says, I got an EpiPen. Can I legally take theirs and smack the buddy in the leg with it?" Well, the answer is no.
Oh.
Am I going to? Yep.
Okay. Well, that makes me unhappy. I mean, I understand that to a point. Can I hand my EpiPen to them and they can stab themselves?
Yeah, you could always do that. It happens every year in Canada, and as long as you're not being stupid with it, it's never a problem.
Yeah.
But
sometimes you can't let laws get in the way of somebody actually perishing from,
Yes.
You got to take your chances.
I don't want to get sued. You die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I like your idea, Tim. I'm saying, here, I have it if you want to use it.
And again, it depends on your comfort level. I'm pretty comfortable with using epinephrine. I've done it lots of times. Not everybody is going to have my comfort level. You have it, yeah. So you need to think about that now, where you draw your own personal line in the sand. It's like if you run across somebody who's not breathing, are you going to do mouth-to-mouth resuscitation on them? Now, my line is infants and children. I will always do it. I have met people I would think twice about, but I've done it lots. But again, not every paramedic agrees with me. So you have to think about this stuff ahead of time and know where your own personal limits are. rather than trying to figure it out at the time.
Sure.
Okay, cool.
The one thing I think about an EpiPen too in the backcountry is you don't know, like if you might know if you have an anaphylactic reaction to something, but sometimes you don't know that you have an anaphylactic. If you've never been stung by a bee, how do you know if you're actually allergic and anaphylactic, like with an anaphylactic reaction to it, right?
Well,
that was the case when I first determined I was allergic to acetylsilic acid. I used to take aspirins for headaches, right? Back when I was younger, that was the normal thing, right? One day I took one, Dennis blew up, right? I didn't know. It just happened one day. It changed.
Yeah.
So, you don't know if yourself or somebody in your party that might be paddling with you or hiking with you or front country camping with you has a reaction. So
yeah. Now the bright side is when you get stung by a bee, it takes two stings to set it up. One sting introduces the proteins in the venom into your body that it doesn't like, and then the second one you'll have the anaphylactic shock. Now lots of anaphylaxis also gets worse with time. You start out with an allergy that every time they get exposed it gets worse. Not everybody. Anaphylaxis is a very, very scary thing when you see it.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Any other questions, Tim?
That was it for me. It was the EpiPen thing. I thought, you know what? I don't need one. We don't need one, but would it be such a big deal to drag one with me in case I found somebody that needed one?
Yeah, I would. I do.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Cool. Well, it's going to my kit, and to hell with the laws.
Well, you know what? Like I say, I personally I carry one just for the simple fact that I know at one time I needed one. And you know what? Like my first aid kit has weighed what my first aid kit weighs for the longest time. It's not like I've added more heavy stuff or it's always been around. It's part of my backpack. I remember the show that we did about life jackets, right? And Marty said, you know what? It's part of the uniform. I wear it. It's part of me, right? Same thing with the first
part of the
aid.
deal.
It's in my backpack. It's in the top compartment of my backpack, and it's always there. So it's basically the weight of my backpack type of thing. You know what I mean? It's part of that weight of that backpack. So I don't think about it, but I know it's there, and it's always handy and available for me if I do need it for whatever the situation. I got tweezers in there to pull out a splinter. I've got the Band-Aids. I've got polysporin in there. The stuff that I think I need, that I'm comfortable using. I'm not going to put something into my first aid kit that I have absolutely no knowledge of how to use. I'm going to put things in there that I know how to use, and I'm going to be able to get out of a jam with if need be. And I think that comes into the practical part of what Doug's saying is it starts here. You might not be a doctor, but how do you stop the bleeding, or how do you fix the wound, right? Yeah.
Yeah, focus on the problem, figure out the solution best as you can. Take a course so that you know more, and you can not panic in that situation. Absolutely. It's on my list for this summer.
Awesome. That's awesome. If anybody else wants to pop into the chat here and ask a quick question, feel free to join the panel, or you know what, even get your questions into the chat over there, and I'll put them up there. Doug is very knowledgeable with what he teaches. So this is the guy whose brain you really want to pick. Well, we
do have two courses coming up in June. One in Oshawa on the 16th, 17th, and 18th, and then the next week down in Stratfordville, down by London. And again, it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday. It's on our website, but yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, Tim, if you want to join the green room later, feel free to do so.
Cool, but kick me out for now.
Okay, man. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, dude.
So Tim is from Super Good Camping. Him and his wife have a podcast, which is very educational. So you never know. He might reach out to you one day, Doug, to have you on the podcast. I'm not trying to make appointments, but I'm just saying, right? So he's down there nodding his head in the face. That's awesome. Let's see here. Let's see. We got a couple more questions. You don't mind taking questions from the chat, I hope, right?
No.
What should someone do from a domestic dog bite on a trip? Happened to him a while back. So if you're on a it doesn't even have to be wilderness first aid. This is a daily thing, right?
You always got to watch animal bites. I know people say that a dog's mouth is cleaner than a human's mouth, but if they bit me just after licking something, it's not clean. It's very dirty, and because it's a puncture, the chances of getting bacteria deep into the tissue is pretty bad. Any punctured dog bites need to be seen. A physician needs to see them. If you're away somewhere backpacking, then if it's not a dog you need to find out whose dog is it vaccinated. Dog bites are one of the few things hospitals actually have to report to the police. Sorry, let me take that back. They report it to the health department in Ontario. My oldest daughter was bit by one of her friend's dogs. It was reported, and all the health department wanted to know was, did they know the dog, and is it rabid? Rabies is not something you want to come down with. Rabies is pretty much 100% fatal if you come down with it. So I don't care if it's a domestic dog or a wolf. You really need to get this looked at. If after a day you're starting to see swelling, redness, maybe some pus coming out, it's time to cut the trip short and say, we need to evacuate out, because that is only going to get worse.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. What about actually cleaning the wound if you do get bitten by an animal? Is there any specific cleaning process that you would recommend?
Hot soapy water, if you can, the better you can get down into it. Again, depending on what you're carrying, if you happen to have a needle with you, you can fill it with soapy water. You make sure you don't inject it. Like there's stuff out there they're called blunt tips. We can use them for irrigation, and just try and wash out as much as you can. Let it bleed a little bit. Also helps.
Mm-hmm. Well, and what about let's talk Hollywood here. Tie it off and pour some whiskey on it. Is that or should you just drink whiskey?
No, and that's one of the things we teach everybody in any of our classes is, please, at the end of the class, do not go home and watch a YouTube video and think you can pull out a knife and a pen and do a cricothyrotomy on somebody's throat. It just doesn't work right. Most of the stuff you see on TV is just TV. It's just not real.
Right.
They want dramatic effect.
Right.
Alcohol is very bad on wounds. It kills the cells, and it makes healing. It scars, and it makes healing difficult. Just like if you're really cold, don't drink alcohol. It may warm your stomach, but alcohol is actually a vasal or vessel dilator, and what it'll do is it'll make you colder overall.
Right. Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah, it's everybody says, here, have a nip of this, it'll warm you up, and then it's doing the complete opposite, right?
Now, if you put the little nip inside the hot chocolate, I'm not sure how that's going to work, but it might be okay.
We've got a couple people in the basin here. Let's start with Memorex88, who I believe his name is Marco. Is that Marco?
That's right.
There we go. What a memory. Hey, how you doing tonight?
Pretty good. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, we got you loud and clear.
Well, hi Dennis, hi Douglas. So I'm a school bus driver, so I have first aid certificate, and every 3 years I gotta find out the new stuff. But this happened to me before I was a school bus driver. I still do fish a lot. And I got sunstroke fishing, and I didn't know what was happening to me that night. That whole day, it was like no clouds, really hot. I kept dunking my bucket hat in the water, trying to keep this cool. But that night, I was the hallucinations. I would see my hand going. It was wild, and the heart pounding. And I didn't know what to do. And I still don't know what the best thing to do besides calling 911 which I couldn't, being in
Cool
a
off.
tent.
You did the right stuff. The big thing there was you should have stopped what you were doing at some point. I did that in August of 20. We finally got done with my parents' cottage for the first time, and I tried to do 2 weeks of maintenance. I tried to do a year's maintenance in 2 weeks, and I come down with heat exhaustion, which is the forerunner of heat stroke. You're lucky. Heat stroke, it kills. Your brain is probably 40 degrees Celsius or higher, so that's what, about 104, 105 degrees in your brain, and you can't take that. Hallucinations, you're lucky you didn't have seizures. That's very common. So yeah, cool off quick. Make sure you've got enough liquid going into you. Really important to stay hydrated in the summertime.
So, like, go jump in the lake?
As long as it's not really deep in, because if you're that far gone, I'd be scared you jump in and lose consciousness. At which point the drowning would kill you before the heat stroke, but we try and avoid that. One of the things we teach is if you're out somewhere that you don't have access to large amounts of water, you take a tarp, fold it in half, roll the ends in, and then so it looks like a funny canoe. And then take the contents of your coolers, the ice water, pour it in there, and then put your patient in that and cool them down. You got to cool them down. This heat stroke, sunstroke kills. Yeah.
Yep.
Very serious. You're lucky man. Good. You were doing the right stuff.
What are some of the onset symptoms of this? Because sometimes it could sneak up on you. You might not think that it's happening, and as Marco said, all of a sudden, boom, it was upon him, and he's getting all this hallucination.
With me, we're at my parents' cottage. My wife come in, and I'm sitting at the table, and I'm just soaking wet, sweating. I got the fan on, I got water, and she goes, "What's wrong?" I said, "I'm dizzy." One. I said, I'm nauseous. I haven't vomited, but I'm nauseous. And I just went on like this. And my wife, being a highly trained critical care nurse, looked down at me and in a very therapeutic manner went, "Idiot. You have heat exhaustion."
Yeah.
And I went, "Oh yeah, I do." So I had to be very careful after that. The next step, I'd be 15 minutes out, 15 minutes in. After that, a sunstroke, a heat stroke, one of the big things is you stop sweating. The body has got to the point where it says, "I've had enough. I can't do anymore. I'm going to go into preservation mode." It's just like if you're really cold, if you're really hypothermic, you'll stop shivering. For this, you stop sweating, and you get seizures, the weird thinking, bizarre thoughts sometimes. And this is where sometimes people get their brain is so screwed up because of the heat that they will actually run away from rescuers. They'll do the same thing with the cold too. People are too cold. Their brain gets too cold. Will do exactly the same stuff. So yeah, just the big thing is just prevent it. Be careful.
Oh
yeah, and if you're solo, it could be deadly, very deadly.
Yeah. Yes, without my wife, I would be absolutely nothing.
Mm-hmm.
I am now trying to make points back up again.
So one more question on that, Doug. Then, if you are experiencing the heat stroke, is a quick cool down in calling, or is it something that you should be trying to bring your body temperature down? Like Marco said, should I be jumping in the lake and
jumping in, absolutely jumping in the lake. If you're in an urban area, into a shower, close it all, cold shower. If you're out somewhere more rural, into a stream, because if you don't get that core temperature, especially the brain temperature, down to a more reasonable, like around 102 Fahrenheit, you're gonna have seizures.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great to know. Great question there, Marco. Thanks.
Thank you for the answer.
You're welcome.
Did you have any other questions for Doug?
No, that was the question.
All righty, thanks, man. You have a great night, and hope you enjoy the rest of the show.
Thank you very much.
Cool. So you know what? We got another person in the basement here, but before we get to him, I would like to we'll take care of this the swag giveaway, as I had mentioned. Usually, I like to take care of that right after the commercial, but it kind of slipped my mind because I'm learning. Let's see here. So for tonight's swag giveaway, Doug has offered to give a prize. So Doug, you want to tell everybody what you're giving?
Yes, I'm going to give you an outdoorsy kind of first aid kit, sort of an upscale model, because I take stuff like this and I'll add extra stuff to it to make it more of an outdoorsy first aid kit, which means there'll probably be some fire starting things in it and just some extra stuff. And when Dennis tells me who it is, we will ship it off to you.
Okay, and at the same time, whoever the winner is through a draw, I will also send you a small Canoe Hound Adventures gift pack as well, just to sweeten the pot a little bit. So tonight's swag giveaway question is what year did Doug start teaching CPR and first aid? We covered it there probably within about the first 5 minutes that Doug was introduced into the show. Actually, I think I even covered it in your introduction, didn't I, Doug? So
yes,
just to let everybody know, if you can't remember, feel free to go back to that portion. And all you need to do is send your entry to coesprize@gmail.com. That's going across the bottom in the ticker there. And you have until Sunday evening to get your answer in. And this allows for people that are not watching live, but maybe watching after the fact to be able to get into the drawing. So once again, the question is, what year did Doug start teaching CPR and first aid? And just send your answer in. So I'll just leave that going on the bottom of the screen for another minute. And at the same time there, we're going to introduce our next person for a quick question here. And we got Donald Dakota. Man, are you my co-host?
Oh, you would think so sometimes. Yeah, I didn't come on last week, but yeah, I thought about it, but it was a good show anyways. Had some things to do, but yeah, I like coming on your show. It's great. I love the guests that you have.
Awesome. Hey, you got a killer hat on, dude.
Yeah, you like that? Yeah,
I love it. Love it.
That's all right. So, hey, I have a question and then a comment. And I saw in the chat there, someone mentioned about discussing allergies with someone they're going out with. So, like example, let's say that you and I, Dennis, are going to go on a canoe trip. It'd be good for each of us to know what the other one's allergic to. Good thing to discuss preparation, and for you to have my emergency contact information and for me to have yours too. So if one of us is incapacitated, so to speak, we know who to contact. So that's my thought. But my question for Doug is, so stitches in the backcountry.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is it, you hear about people saying, yeah, I could use a fish hook and some fishing line, or I carry thread and a needle. What would it be better to tape something up, wrap it up tight as you can, and get out to get help? Or if you're far back in, try stitching it up yourself. What are your thoughts on that?
You can go both ways with that. What we teach is how to use duct tape and put it into what's called a butterfly closure. You can buy butterfly closures, but they're expensive. I've actually had physicians look at the wound closures I've done on patients and said, yes, as good as anything I can do stitching. Yes, you can use a needle. I would not use a fish hook. You'd have to take the barb off at first. And again, the shank is a little too big on it. But yeah, you can absolutely do it. It doesn't have to be like the physicians do it. They have these funny, fancy knots they use, but if you need to close it, you need to close it. I guess, Sylvester Stallone in Rambo, First Blood, he sews himself up there. Yeah. And that's very possible, but it's your own comfort level. If you want to do something like that, then next time you have a roast, get it ahead of time, put a cut in it, practice sewing it up a few times. Don't tell your wife you've done this. Because sometimes they get testy when you play with the food. But yeah, absolutely, you can do that.
Yeah, never thought of that. Hey, how come our rump roast has stitches?
I don't know. Couldn't tell you, but and then would you recommend the needle and thread if you're far back in, dropping it in boiling water to sterilize it before you use it. Do you think that's really necessary, or just stitch away?
Absolutely. No. Again, you're going to introduce, if it's not absolutely clean, you're going to introduce bacteria in through the needle. This is one of the reasons why I like the tape, using the tape. It works very well. But yeah, you've got to make sure everything is absolutely clean, that you're not, when you touch it, if you're going to use, because you really need a needle driver, and if you don't have a proper needle driver, a pair of small needle nose pliers or something like that will work. But again, you want to make sure it's absolutely sterile, or we're just going to be putting bacteria right inside somebody's body.
Mm-hmm. So a quick comment question type of thing here, and I was just thinking the exact same thing as everybody says about using crazy glue. Is this a myth, or is this something that's legit?
It's legit. Yeah, that's where crazy glue actually came from, was as a wound closure. Now they will tell you the stuff they use in the hospital is different, but again, if I'm back in the middle of nowhere, push it together and put a drop across the top. Yeah, that'll hold it nicely. We were on our first cruise and my wife her tooth broke. So what are we going to do? That's when we found out that boats don't do dental work. So next port of call, we would have got a tube of crazy glue, and I glued her tooth back in, and it lasted the trip. Was the dentist happy with me? No. But that's okay. I can live with that.
No, because you took like $800 out of his pocket, right? No,
that's right. I would have had an upset wife for the 14 days.
So with using crazy glue, so it includes some of that in your kit. Does it matter the type of crazy glue? Like, because there's different brands now. There's like the no-name ones. There's like Gorilla Glue. There's the original super glue.
I really like the Gorilla Glue myself.
Yeah.
And again, I know someone had popped up about that surgical glue is available. And yeah, if you want to do it, if you want to pay for that kind of stuff, again, this is stuff we're doing because we have no other choice.
Yeah.
That, we're in a position where we have to do something, and or you can do both. You could glue it and then put the tape strips on it. The choice is yours.
Right. So let me ask this then: if you're going to use crazy glue to close a wound, you obviously have to stop the bleeding first, right?
Yes.
Okay. So best way to do that is to do what?
Pressure, direct pressure. Rest, elevate, direct pressure. And again, it depends how bad it is. If it is something simple, again, not to be confused with what I mentioned catastrophic bleeding the other day. The femoral artery in your leg is about the size of your thumb. I've seen femoral artery bleed squirt 6-8 feet with every heartbeat. That's going to be tourniquet and prayer. But for the most part, yeah, you're going to be able to get it stopped. Sometimes, depending on the size of it, you may need to pack it with gauze or something, or some linen you have, to just make sure we're getting that pressure in there to stop it from bleeding. The idea of pressure is it slows down the blood. If it slows down the blood, then it allows the clotting agents to take over, the platelets and whatnot, and start to clot.
Yeah. Now that femoral artery thing there, a friend of mine actually knows, and I shouldn't be saying this, but I won't mention any names, but he was actually given from an EMT it's like a gauze or a stuffing thing that you would actually put into the wound, and you pack it in there, and it's supposed to stop the femoral artery.
We teach that. You can use things like Quick Clot or Silex gauze or just plain gauze. But yeah, no, you kind of wipe it out till you try to see where the blood's coming from, and you just jam the gauze into it, because lots of times the choice is death. If you look at combat casualties, you look at Iraq and Afghanistan, most of the soldiers died from blood loss. And that's why the militaries are so big. That's why every Canadian soldier carries Quick Clot in their own tourniquet and their own bandage.
Right.
To be used on themselves.
Crazy. Gonna pull up a couple of questions. Donald, stick around for a minute here. Let's see here. And this year, I'm going to post this question here because we were talking about the fish hook, and somebody has obviously watched one of my videos of late with the Michelle, right? Yeah. And asking the best way to deal with a fish hook with a barb in your flesh, winking at me because I had a fish hook in the hand, and it was a bugger to get out. Now, you mentioned doing stitches with a fish hook.
Yeah, that'd be difficult.
First off, you got that big round thing that you put the string through to tie the string on, right?
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not going to have anything to tie your string to. But anyways,
well,
regardless,
I'm gonna make
you got these barbs. What's the easiest way to get out a barbed hook?
They're not hard at all. What you do is, I'm assuming if you've got fishing gear, you've got a set of needle nose pliers with a side cutter on it.
Mhm.
You cut the hook or the eye off
Mhm.
and shove it through.
Yeah, easier said than done.
Oh, I've done it. It's very easy.
If you watch my video, it hurt like a SOB. We'll just put it that way. It was in the hands are very sensitive, right? So you get that in your index finger or something, which was my case. We couldn't push that thing through. Maybe it wasn't a sharp hook or it was too much into the meat. But I now have a hook removal kit that I keep, my first aid kit.
Okay.
And it's basically a string in it. They say you just jerk it out backwards, like the same way it went in, right?
Okay. Ouch.
Yeah, well, you know what? I went through like an hour of ouch trying to fish that thing through the other way. So
I would have had it out in less time. You just have to remember, Dennis, it's a question of mind over matter.
Yeah.
I don't mind and you don't matter.
Yeah, and I'm a big baby, so
that was funny, by the way.
Self-admitted, yeah.
See, that's why fishing with barbless hooks is a great thing.
It's a good idea. No, I'd probably fill you up with painkillers first.
Yeah.
And I would numb the area with ice, lots and lots of ice to numb the area. Ice is great for numbing.
Yeah. We had no ice. We were in backcountry. Yeah.
You had no beer?
Yeah, but it wasn't ice cold.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. Thanks for pointing out that question too, by the way. Let's see here. David Evans is saying, can we discuss the importance of proper hydration in the backcountry? I'm sure a lot of medical ailments can be nipped in the bud by having proper hydration, right?
It does a lot of things, and it's everywhere, and it's summer and winter. When we run the course in February and March, we tell everybody on day one that if any of the instructors are safety people, they're going to come up and they're going to ask you how you are. And you're supposed to answer, I am warm, dry, and hydrated. That does two things. It reassures to us that, yes, you are keeping hydrated. And it's a mental wellness check, too. Because I walk up and say, how are you? And you go, I'm fine. I said, no, how are you? And you go, well, I'm just fine. Then I take you inside. Because it's not the answer you're supposed to get. Hydration is so important. Really, because, you sit there in the summertime and you go, it's one of the things, if you're not feeling well, one of the first things I'm going to ask you is when the last time you peed. And when you did pee, did you look to see what color it was? Yeah, there's nothing sacred around me. Because if it's dark, then you're not drinking enough. And that starts causing problems.
Right.
Very important.
Now, if you're drinking enough water, is it important to utilize electrolytes in what you're drinking?
I like to. You don't have to. Plain old water is good, but if you've got stuff, and again, this is just my personal humble opinion, Gatorade is one of the number ones. There's some new stuff coming out that's specifically made for people who are doing the kind of stuff we do, because it's got those electrolytes in it, and you do need those electrolytes. One of the things, as you sweat out, you start sweating out potassium, you sweat out calcium, and you get low in these can affect how your heart contracts.
Right.
It would take a while. It would take a while, but it is possible to cause problems.
Yeah, because nowadays you could buy there's like electrolyte tablets that you can get. BioSteel is getting to be very popular. Just you buy it at Costco or whatever. You add it to your water. It's flavored, so it gives you some better tasting water. And then it has all these additives in it to strengthen your body, right?
Yeah, but again, like anything else, I've tried a couple. Read the labels. Look and see what people have said online about it. Again, the trouble, a lot of this stuff is not regulated by law, so you just put into whatever you feel like putting into it. But yeah, it's always good. It's lots of ways. There's no excuse to get dehydrated and sick. It just shouldn't happen.
The one thing I look at too is because I like watching my sport, right? You always see, well, BioSteel now is getting to be really big, and you always see Gatorade, right, on the back lines of like, you know, any sports team. Which I know a lot of that sponsorship dollars and stuff like that, but you know what? They probably wouldn't be using it if it wasn't good for the athletes to replenish, right?
Again, Gatorade was invented by the Florida Gators football team,
right?
For playing in the heat down there.
Is that right? Okay.
Yeah.
Man, you're full of these little tidbits, eh?
You learn things 37 years of doing this or more.
Hey, Doug, what about Tang? You guys have that in Canada?
Yeah, sorry. You can see it. You can't. I have Tang right here. It's one of my favorite. That and I've got cherry Kool-Aid in this one. I stay hydrated. Yeah, it's a great drink. It's not gonna help you with electrolytes. It's just a flavoring. But again, if it makes you drink, then that's good. And that's why I do it, is to make sure that I drink enough.
Yeah, and what is maybe you could dispel the myth. What is a good or proper amount of water that you should be consuming on a daily basis? I know it all has to do with how much you're putting out, but what's typical?
It's heat, it's you, and it depends on the what you read. And I'm going to tell you, go back and say the same thing again. Look at the color of your urine.
Right.
If it's a nice light golden color, you're okay. If it's start getting dark brown and maybe you have a bit of an odor to it, then you're not getting nearly enough. It just depends on the person.
If it's starting to look like the Tang you're drinking, then maybe you should be.
Yeah, you probably should have some more.
Yeah, because me myself, like I've always got my Nalgene bottle is always with me, one of them, right? And I go through usually about 2 liters of water a day, and sometimes I wonder if that's enough or not enough, right? So yeah, but I guess you let your urine.
This one again, kind of hard to see with the back. Okay, so this is the third time this is my third one. I'll have that done before I go to bed.
Right. Very good. Very good. iTime is asking, is there a book you recommend for wilderness first aid?
Oh, there is. Let me see if I got a copy sitting right here.
I showed Doug my book from like back when I had my emergency first aid training, and this would probably tell me about the year I did it, but it's an old St. John's ambulance book, and often I'll bring this with me into the backcountry too, because there's all kinds of little things in there that if you had to look something up that you didn't know how to do, it's kind of covered in here, right? So
it's not it's not here, but it's the you can buy it on Amazon. It's the textbook we use for the course, and that's the Outward Bound.
Outward Bound?
Outward Bound. Yeah, you've heard the group Outward Bound. I think they've put their own textbook out, and it's pretty good. There's a ton of like there's one. Oh my god!
I will find that, and I will put it in the description below so that people can check it out.
I almost broke my cup.
Don't do that.
This one is a little a little hard to see. Is a little on the hard side here. The background is not working well.
Yeah, your green screen is taking over everything here.
Green screen's taking over. There we go. Wilderness Emergency Medicine. This is about a 700-page manual. Another really good one. I'm not sure if it's there or not. I got it somewhere else. Is actually the Special Forces, the U.S. The Green Beret medic manual. It tells you how to do a lot of stuff.
Right.
A lot of fun.
Do you include any any books or anything like that with your courses that you offer? Like, do people go home with a workbook?
You get a textbook with you get a textbook, you get a crest, login. A lot of people we do are like in scouting and whatnot for their uniforms. But yeah, you get your textbook with the price and receipt.
Okay. And David from North is asking here, what's the recommended painkiller to take on trips? And he says, sorry if it was already asked. We did discuss a couple of painkillers, but do you recommend aspirin over Tylenol, or is there something that
aspirin, Tylenol, Advil? Take all three.
Yeah. Okay.
Because the Advil and Tylenol are two very different drugs, so you can actually take them at the same time.
Right.
But what we do for people who are really in pain is at noon, I'll give you the Tylenol, and it has a 4-hour life. It peaks at 2 and starts drifting off. So at 2 o'clock, I give you the Advil, and we keep alternating it like that throughout the day. Or you can give them both at the same time. The aspirin I just keep around for chest pains, basically, because we never give aspirin to somebody who's bleeding because it'll make the bleeding worse. Because it's a platelet aggregation inhibitor. I said that earlier. But I carry when we go. I could have brought my little kit down. Advil, Tylenol, aspirin. I have some Tylenol 3s. They go with me. 2 or 3 kinds of antibiotics, creams, and things you don't think about sometimes, like Canestin cream. You're back in the country and your female partners start having gynecological problems. You're a long way away. I carry the whole. I look and say, what can happen, and then I pack the drug bag accordingly.
Yeah.
Well, isn't Tylenol is acetaminophen, right? Advil's ibuprofen.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and what I've been taught was that the acetaminophen, the Tylenol, is better for a fever, and the Advil's works a little bit better for pain. You think those are true, or?
It depends on. With me, like for pain, like for headaches or something, it's the Advil over the Tylenol. But I will do both. They both have fever control components to them, but I think probably the Tylenol probably has a better reputation for the fevers.
Another thing too with that is I mentioned this to Casey Happy Camper. Vicks. Vicks on your temples will help make a headache go away and help with head pain, and it'll also stop mosquito bite itch.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Never heard that.
Yeah, the old-fashioned Vicks vapor rub, or if you can get it in the cream. Of course, it smells pretty potent, so I don't know if you want that great of a smell all over yourself when you're in the backcountry.
It's funny. Vicks vapor rub is something we always carried in the ambulance because of some of the places we went into. You would just take it and rub it across your mustache to kill the smell. I don't know about doing headaches, so I'm sitting here trying to think of from a pharmacological viewpoint what it would do, and I can't see anything. But hey, if it works, it works.
Yeah, it works. It's probably the vapors you're breathing in, I would think, or something. So
the older I get, the less I know, and I realize that modern Western medicine isn't always everything. It's finding out what works for you and going with that. And if that works for you, then that's good. Actually, bee stings and stuff like that. Best thing you can put on it, vinegar.
Yeah. Yeah, I've
vinegar.
heard that.
Yeah, vinegar denatures the venom. The protein from the venom. Maybe
Sorry.
You probably
what? I wanted to show like this stuff here, after bite, right? I always throw a tube of that in my first aid kit. Something that just for the quick release. My son-in-law, he just within 5 miles of a mosquito or a black fly, and he's getting bit, right? So it's one of those things. And this stuff, he carries like a couple of these things for any kind of trip. Something else I carry, and I'm just gonna like a couple things here, but moleskins for simple remedies in the backcountry. These things are great if you start experiencing blisters or anything like that. Just handy little things to include in your kit. Like that package is super thin, weighs next to nothing, right? It's a very handy thing to have.
Yeah, it just depends what you want to put in it. I'd say very simple to very complex. All of that stuff is very good.
Yeah. Another tip that I could share with people is sometimes if you go to see your doctor, tell your doctor you're putting together a first aid kit. You'd be surprised at the amount of different sample things he might be able to give you, or he'll have his registered nurse or whatever say, you know what, set Mr. Rogers up here with a bunch of like first aid kit goodies. And you get the little samplers of polysporin, or you'll get so you never know what they're more than willing to give. They get them for samples, and I'm sure their cupboards are overflowing with that kind of stuff. I've even done that when we have gone on trips abroad. When we went to Dominican Republic, you always ask people, hey, what can we give as tips? And a lot of times they'll say, you know what, bring Tylenol, stuff that they have a hard time getting, right? Talk to the doctor. Doctor, give me all these sample packs of Tylenol, right? Take them there and you leave them with people.
Good idea.
Right? So you never know what your doctor is willing to give you that's going to save you a bit of money for your first aid kit, and something that might go in there. Like he might give you some of this gauze that you said you charge 75 cents for. They charge $6. You'll go, here's a couple rolls.
Yeah, it's possible. You never know.
Yeah. So
someone in the chat mentioned peppermint oil on their forehead for a headache. I know I carry peppermint oil because I was taught a drop of it will make a tick back out of your skin. Any thoughts on that?
Well, again, I'm going to go back. If it works for you, that's great. There is no scientific basis for how I know how a pain relief works within the body. Scientifically, it makes no sense. But again, if it works for you, outstanding. That's more important than whether or not I can explain it. There's lots of things I can't explain.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Okay, so you know what? We're a couple minutes out from closing up tonight's show, but I did put in the chat there, if anybody has any quick fire questions that we could throw at Doug, maybe that he could answer, please do drop them in there. I see we got one quick question here from Michelle, and I just want to bring that up here. If you chop a finger off, how can you keep it for reattachment?
How long? 6 to 7 hours. That's what you've got.
7 hours? Refrigerated or like on ice or?
On ice. Well, you bag it and then put it on a bag of ice. Again, something that's come out of Iraq and Afghanistan is they did a lot of research on this. And we now know that when a body part loses blood supply and oxygen, it kind of goes into like a suspended animation for about 6 to 7 hours. So heart attack, occlusive stroke, tourniquets, amputated limbs all have this about 6 to 7 hours to get definitive treatment before irreparable damage occurs.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're 2 days back in the bush, sorry, it's not going to work.
So I could throw you right on the line of that question. You're in the backcountry and you're chopping wood, and you're going to cut something with your axe or your knife or whatever it might be, and you happen to take off the end of your digit.
Mm-hmm.
How do you seal that up? What steps should you take to stop the bleeding and to try and package it for when you get out?
For the most part, they don't bleed a lot. You got to remember that the arteries are going to bleed mostly from the arteries. Arteries are thick, muscular walled vessels that carry blood. And think of a piece of surgical tubing. So you've got a piece of surgical tubing and you put it under pressure, then you cut it in the middle, and both ends kind of go bang up inside, and then the muscles seize, they go into spasm around it. Just gauze, cling or roller bench, wherever you got, wrap it up, and then whip out the Advil and the Tylenol.
About what about, is it for something like that? Would it be a smart idea to put on like a polysporin or like some sort
Sure,
of
absolutely,
antiseptic cream?
absolutely. Yeah, you can always do that. Yeah, you can
Okay.
always can treat any open wound like that.
Okay.
And again, if your finger is more than 6 or 7 hours away from reattachment, it's not going to happen.
Right. Okay. Another question from Evan here asking, is there a difference between the sickness from badly filtered water and food contamination? So eating bad
Yeah,
food and maybe giardia?
it's yeah, like water badly. Giardia is a big one in Ontario and Canada. When I was a young man, we did canoe trips. I would drink the water in Algonquin Park. I wouldn't do it today. Where bad food, it can be botulism, it can be salmonella. It's just the bug, the different kind. You get different kinds of bug. You're going to get really sick from both of them. So that's why it's always so important to be careful with both your water and your food. And again, one of the things we teach is how to clean water, how to filter it.
Right. Okay. Perfect. And you know what? One final question from Dan Spadafora. Donald, I'm just going to drop you into the basement as we close up the show. So feel free to stick around for the green room if you like.
Hey, sounds great. Thank you very much, Doug.
Yeah. So from Dan Spadafora here as a kind of a parting question, one piece of advice for wilderness first aid. The floor is all yours.
Take a wilderness first aid course so that you're ready for it. Your standard first aid, your emergency first aid, even advanced first aid is not going to equip you for having nothing, because when you get into something, you're not going to have, you don't carry a stretcher with you. You don't carry a defibrillator with you. You don't carry splints with you.
Right.
Take a course, learn how to do it, because that's what's going to save your life.
Okay, perfect. And let's tell everybody a bit more about your courses, where they could find more information, and maybe how they can get themselves set up with one of the courses if they're in your area.
Okay. Again, we're out of Beaumont. We do travel around. If you have, again, I mentioned the two coming up in June, one in Oshawa, one in Stratfordville. You can find them on our website, which is emcat.ca. If you've got a group and you've got a group who would like to run a course, and if we have, depends how far I got to drive. If it's really far, I would like about 10 or 12 people. We travel. We've done this as far north as Sudbury. We've done it twice now, down next to the Six Nations, north of Peterborough. We'll go anywhere. We just it's what we do. We do it full time. We're not part-time instructors. We run the company. Sometimes it feels 24/7. But again, have a look at what we offer. If you need certification, or someone needs certification, we do a lot of work with dental offices with CPR recertifications. We do them all over South Central Ontario. I think we've got 21 now that we look after every year. So yeah, just look at the website. Feel free. Our contact information is there. If you got a question, ask. I have no problem with that.
Very cool. And the typical size of your classes, did you mention around a dozen people?
For wilderness first aid, a dozen is nice. I've done it smaller, but when you start hitting 6, it's not as much fun, because there's teamwork exercises in this, and teams of 6 are better than teams of 3.
Okay.
For the first aid and stuff like that is tomorrow I've got 10 people from a travel agency. I'm going to go do them all day tomorrow.
Awesome. So I did mention to Doug earlier in the show, or actually in the green room, that the possibility of maybe setting up a canoe hound group to possibly take a first wilderness first aid course with him. I think we'll talk, Doug, and we'll try and work out some details and see what we might come up with. And then if we do get something set up, I will definitely post it on our Facebook page and to see if we can get any takers. I know already myself and a couple of others that had already shown interest in doing this. So would that be a cool thing with you, Doug?
Absolutely. I see a couple people already jumping up on the comments saying that they're interested. Yeah, sure.
Okay.
We just love. What I even like better is when people come back to me later and say, "Hey, we ran into trouble, but your training got us through it." That to me is bigger than a paycheck. Because I just want to see everybody come home.
Yeah. Very good. Well, you know what? I might do that. I'll pull out my calendar book and see what I got available in this very, very busy summer that's already coming up. But we'll definitely try to set something up, and I'll see if I can fill a class, and we'll have some very good companionship, and then, of course, some very good training. So, Doug, thanks very much for coming on tonight, sharing some of your knowledge with us, and looking forward to what might come in the future, too.
Me too. I'd love to do more.
Awesome. I'm just going to drop you into the basement, close out the show here, and we'll see you in a few moments.
Okay.
Excellent. Okay, Aries. Well, you know what? There we go. We all got a little bit of education there on wilderness first aid training and answered a few questions, and that's all good. But you know what? The all important thing is making sure that you do get yourself some sort of training, because you never know what type of situation you might run into when it's in the backcountry, or you know what, it could be right down here in your own basement. You never know when an injury or some sort of mishap is going to happen that your little bit of knowledge that you've picked up might help with. So by all means, if you're looking for some training and you happen to be in the area of Doug there and Gemcat, by all means, reach out to them and see what you could do. We'll see if we could actually set up a Canoe Hound Adventures course there, or a training segment there to get out there. And if not, you know what, if you happen to be from outside the area, by all means, look up and find somebody that's qualified in your area to get you trained for your backcountry adventure. So that's always a cool thing. A couple quick things here before we do take off. Thanks to everybody who stuck around. Just wanted to say, next week on Canoe Hound's Outdoor Adventure Show, we'll be joined by Mike and Fiona from Badger Paddles, who are new sponsors of Canoe Hound's Outdoor Adventure Show. And it's basically going to be a paddle show. We're going to learn all kinds of things about, different types of paddles, different types of materials, the aesthetics, the ergonomics, a little bit of everything. And of course, how to care for and maintain your paddles. And we're going to get to know a little bit more about Badger Paddles, who put out some really nice paddles through years of experience. So by all means, be sure to put that on your calendar for next Tuesday. And I think that's about all we got for tonight. So hope everybody enjoyed tonight's show. If you did, please do hit that thumbs up. And if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do hit that subscribe button as well. In the meantime, enjoy the nice weather out there when the rain all stops, and get yourselves out there into the backcountry. And you know what? Keep the adventures alive. Have a good one, everybody. We'll see you next Tuesday.